Hello and welcome to an introduction to psychological flexibility for HR professionals. Those of you that are joining me live, you're very welcome. And for those of you that are joining live, just to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available shortly after we finish the webinar for those who have signed up and can't make it. I've put a note in the chat box if you're willing. It'd be lovely if you could introduce yourself. Let me know who's here. Hi, Catherine. Lovely to hear from you. Thank you very much for joining us. And for those of you who don't know me while you're introducing yourselves, I am Julie Allen, and I have been supporting organisations and individuals to improve performance, achieve sustainable results, and behavioural change over a 25-year period. How I do that is I help individuals to improve psychological flexibility. That's what we're here to talk about today. And I am a certified ACT trainer and matrix facilitator. I also create psychologically safe workplaces, and I'm a certified pro-social matrix facilitator. And I also conduct assessments. I'm licensed with Thomas International to provide their trait emotional intelligence questionnaire, which there is an emotional intelligence assessment, and also their personality profile assessment, PPA. Before we go any further, just a couple of housekeeping pieces to go through. So for those of you who haven't joined my webinars before, you might think that I've forgotten to put on presenter mode in PowerPoint. I haven't. You'll realise as I go through the session the reason why. For those of you who haven't joined Crowdcast before, and those of you who have maybe been on Crowdcast before but haven't been on for a while, there have been some changes and improvements to the system, which are wonderful. You'll see just over on the top right-hand side, you've got the chat. You've also got questions and answers. Feel free to use the chat. If you've got any questions, please feel free to put them in there. And you'll also see a set of scissors. And that is what we call in Crowdcast a clip moment. So just forgotten how many seconds, but it allows you to clip a moment during the webinar and share it on social media for those people who like to keep people up to date with the different webinars that they're attending, or share something that they think is of interest. So just wanted to point that out to you as well. So those are the housekeeping bits done. Those of you that have not joined me before, you'll also know that I do like this to be fun and interactive. So that is what you can expect. So just moving on and getting into the session. What I wanted to do before I start to talk about psychological flexibility is to talk about the challenges for HR professionals, because this is the reason that I feel that we want to be having the conversation about psychological flexibility. So Gallup do a State of a Global Workplace report annually, and the 2023 report highlighted that 44% of the global workforce are experiencing stress a lot. 21% of the global workforce are also experiencing anger a lot. And 59% of the global workforce are quiet quitting. And 51% are intent on leaving their organisation. So for HR professionals, it is a difficult profession to be in, considering those particular statistics that I've highlighted. But also a survey conducted last year highlighted that just 1 in 4 say that they trust their HR leader. And so widely trusted as one who cares about the needs of the employee. So there's a real lack of trust, not just in HR managers, but also in terms of managers and organisations. Also put that within the context of a survey or research that predicted back in 2018 that there would be a global talent shortage of over 85 million by 2030. That's roughly the population of Germany. So as HR professionals, what we can see is we are managing the emotions of individuals in the organisation, and we're also managing productivity in terms of perhaps the quitting, and also the intent to leave the organisation. And I think at this point, sometimes in the chat box, people will say, well, quitting isn't a bad thing, and I'm not saying it is. But this is the environment of which you are operating within. So thinking about that and what psychological flexibility then is. So psychological flexibility is an individual's ability to behave in a way that brings them satisfaction, even when uncomfortable thoughts or feelings are showing up. And if you think about the previous slide, highlighting the HR challenges, and what we do know is those uncomfortable feelings that are showing up are, for example, stress and anger, and also a lack of trust. Psychological flexibility does help an individual to live a richer, fulfilling, and satisfied life with less struggles. And also what we do know is recent research has shown that psychological flexibility is the single most important skill for your mental health and emotional well-being. If I took a poll today, which I'm not going to do, I would suggest that most of you joining today or listening to this as a recording may not have heard of psychological flexibility before. I do know a few of you that are on the call have definitely heard of psychological flexibility before and know a little bit about it. So we're maybe coming back to get some reminders and some tips, and I hope that you do get that. So it's thinking about this is an individual's ability to behave in a way that brings them satisfaction, even when uncomfortable thoughts and feelings are showing up. I'm going to go into some detail to explain psychological flexibility and also how to achieve it. Again, if we look at the research in terms of psychological flexibility, it will say that it can increase well-being and resilience. I've highlighted that it is a key skill. It will also improve performance and productivity. When I'm talking about these benefits, I'm talking about benefits for individuals. Increase satisfaction, general life satisfaction and motivation of life and of work. Also, its ability to reduce work stress and burnout, a key thing again in today's working world, and increase innovation and problem solving. So I've told you what psychological flexibility is. I've told you about some of the benefits. And then the next question really is, well, how do we go about achieving psychological flexibility? Improving psychological flexibility comes from using, today what I'm going to explain is the use of the ACT matrix. You'll see ACT is spelled capital A, capital C and capital T. And so that stands for Acceptance and Commitment Training or Therapy. So acceptance and commitment therapy was created by Professor Steve Hayes around 1986. And not just in a clinical setting, but even by 2000, some workplace trials were being conducted in terms of using acceptance and commitment training in the workplace. Acceptance and commitment therapy training is a 6-core process model. And so Dr. Kevin Polk in 2008 created the ACT matrix, because what everybody wanted to do was to create a way to communicate acceptance and commitment training or therapy in a simple way. And so he is great at creating diagrams that can communicate things in some of the simplest ways. Took him hours to get there. But what the ACT matrix then does in terms of creating psychological flexibility, because the sole purpose of ACT and the ACT matrix is to improve psychological flexibility. And what it does is the ACT matrix is a way of sorting out what we experience and also how we behave. It is a visual tool for making better decisions, and it is a method deeply rooted in behavioural science. I mentioned that ACT was created by Professor Steve Hayes. Those of you that are interested, it has its roots in something called relational frame theory and also cognitive behavioural sciences. So we know then what psychological flexibility is, what the benefits are, and now how we go about improving this using the ACT matrix. What I want to do now is to take you through this method and explain how this could be useful for you as HR professionals. Why is psychological flexibility important to you, and why is it important to those people that you are working with? So what I'd like to do is, if I could ask you to take a sheet of paper and draw 2 lines in front of you. So if you could just draw those 2 lines, a vertical line and a horizontal line, creating a matrix. And at the top of this matrix, what you can see here is we are going to write the 5 senses experiencing. So if you can just write at the top of the page 5 senses experiencing, and at the bottom of this line, we are going to now write mental experiencing. So what I want you to do now is to be thinking about, you are hearing me and you are seeing me today. What we do in life, we experience with our 5 senses. We see things, we hear things, we touch things, we taste things, and those things flow through us and they create thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, and sensations. So the vertical line is an experiencing line, and we are thinking about what we do with our 5 senses and also what that creates in terms of mental experiencing. Also, when we experience thoughts and feelings, we often do things, which is what I would see or hear in 5 senses experiencing. Now, also what you want to do on the left side of the horizontal line, you want to write relief. And on the right side of the horizontal line, satisfaction. For those of you that have joined me before, you'll know now this is where we get interactive, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. So the horizontal line is a behavioural line. We do things in life that either bring us relief or we do things that bring us satisfaction. What I'm going to be doing is demonstrating the ACT matrix and helping you to understand yourself better. And so when I'm asking the questions, what I want you to do is to think about the answer to these questions for yourself. So the first question here in the bottom right, this is a process model. We follow a process. We start in the bottom right in the mental experiencing and satisfaction, and we think about, who are the important people to you in your life? So for me, I'll just get started while I wait for maybe some answers in the chat box. My husband is important, my mum, my sisters. Anybody else like to share in the chat box who is important to them? Who are the important people to you? Don't be shy. Love to hear from you in the chat box. Children, brilliant. Thank you very much. So children also important. Who else might be the important people in your life? Friends and family. Anybody else that you think would be important? Pets, brilliant. Thank you. Pets also important. And the key person that often comes at the end of this list is yourself. So you are important in your life. Now, the other question that I want to ask here is, what is important to you when you consider who is important in your life? So what brings you satisfaction in your approach to those people? So some things that you might find important in your life. So for me, I would say, well, when I'm thinking about myself, my health will be important. Also, I think in terms of those people that are important to me, kindness, compassion. What else might be important to you when you think about happiness? Thank you, Pauline. Happiness is important. For me, and the type of work that I do when I'm talking about behavioural change is making a difference and helping people to live a more fulfilling life. So also maybe understanding is something that would be important for me. Love to know what else might be important for you. I think honesty can often be something that's important in terms of those people. And maybe, it's spending quality time with those people. So on your matrix, it would be great, you'll be getting more out of this, if you are just writing down for yourself who is important to you and what is important to you. And this is pretty critical in terms of achieving psychological flexibility. If I move over then into the bottom left of the matrix, so here we're still in mental experiencing. And the question here is, in mental experiencing and relief, what's the unwanted stuff that shows up for you? So think about for a moment, what might be the unwanted thoughts and feelings that show up for you? So certainly frustration is something that can be showing up. Considering what I've shared with you in terms of the highlights from the Gallup State of the Global Workplace, we know that you will know that stress is showing up. You will know that anger is showing up. You might also be feeling exhausted. What might you be feeling that's unwanted? There may be people who might be feeling burnt out. There might be people feeling that no one cares. Now, while you're completing this for yourself, I'm also thinking about, as HR professionals, some of those people that you might be talking to, what might be showing up for them. So there may be some people that are sad. There may be some people that are disappointed. Also, one of the things that we know that is also showing up a lot is anxiety. So just think about, a lot of these are feelings. I suppose the one that is the thought maybe is no one cares. To develop psychological flexibility, we need to be aware of what is showing up that is unwanted. What do we prefer not to experience? And a short question for you. Imagine you never experienced any of those feelings again that were unwanted. Frustration, stress, anger, exhaustion, sadness, disappointment, and anxiety. How would life feel for you? Some people think that life will feel great without those, and the answer is it won't. If you don't experience any of those emotions, thoughts, and feelings, the chances are you've got some kind of brain damage, because these are a normal range of healthy human emotions. And so we want to think differently about those and perhaps change our relationship that we have with those thoughts and feelings. And that's exactly what we're going to look at now. So if we look at, well, what relationship do I have with those thoughts and feelings? I'd love to hear from you in the chat box again about what are the things that you might do when frustration, stress, anger, exhaustion, feeling burnt out, feeling sad, feeling disappointed, and feeling anxious. What are the things you do to get rid of those feelings? So let me take the first one, frustration. Okay, brilliant, thank you. So swim. So some people will swim and exercise to get rid of that feeling. If I take frustration, which is what I was just saying, so frustration, we might vent and complain, trying to get rid of that frustration. If we're feeling stressed, what might you do to get rid of the feelings of stress? Some might drink alcohol as a means to relax. Others might snack on sugary or savoury foods. So we might snack. When we're exhausted, we might zone out in front of the TV. What I'm asking you to do is to get to know yourself better and to know what it is you do to get relief from the unwanted stuff. So thinking about the relationship here, the mental experiencing, and then the question is, what would I see or hear you doing when this stuff shows up? Feel free to tell me more in the chat box what you might do to get rid of the unwanted stuff. It might also be, we see things like procrastination. Not only is this helping you to get to know yourself better, but thinking about it in this way helps you to understand others better. Because for everything that is going on the outside, there is something going on in the inside. So people's behaviour can also always be explained by the things that are showing up on the inside. If we move across into the top right of the matrix, what I said is improving psychological flexibility, we know will mean that individuals are living a much more fulfilling and satisfied life. Why is that? Because they're focusing on the things that bring them satisfaction. So if you think about the people that are important in your life and what is important to you in terms of your relationship with those people, what might you do to bring you satisfaction? So again, here I'm going to include exercise. Exercise for me is something that, I focus on. It's about my health and keeping me well, also a good diet, quality sleep. If I think about my clients being important to me, my family being important to me, I can't be good to them unless I am also looking after myself. What else are the things that might bring you satisfaction in your approach to those people that are important to you? Think about what else might be important to you. So it might be meeting a friend for a coffee or a catch up. It might also be having a conversation with a work colleague, somebody that you've noticed is struggling. It might also be that you take the dog for a walk. And again, what I want to do here is just illustrate the focus here is on thinking and becoming familiar with what brings me satisfaction in life. What can I do? So if the bottom of the matrix is knowing who and what's important, And the top of the matrix, being a behavioural line, is about then doing what is important. The bit in the middle of the matrix is about you noticing. And so what I'd be asking you to do is, in the next week or so, to see if you have the opportunity to spend time noticing who and what is important to you. To spend time noticing what unwanted stuff shows up for you. To notice what it is you do to get relief from the unwanted stuff. And to notice what are the things that bring you satisfaction. Because psychological flexibility, if I go back to that definition and I explain it using this matrix, is knowing who and what's important in your life. Noticing the unwanted stuff when it shows up, but coming here and doing what's important. Because most of us will spend time with the unwanted stuff trying to get relief. And when you do things to get rid of the unwanted stuff, quite often some more unwanted stuff shows up. On occasions, things like guilt will show up. So think about, am I getting stuck over on the left side of the matrix? For a moment, think about looking at your matrix and looking at how much time am I spending in the internal world, internal experiencing? How much time am I spending in 5 senses experiences? How much time am I spending on relief behaviours? And how much time am I spending on satisfaction behaviours? Learning to use this matrix and becoming more aware, which is what me noticing is, will help you to live a richer and more fulfilling life because you are noticing the things that are important. Not only that, using this matrix with others and having conversations with others using this allows a space to have safe and peaceful conversations. Last week, I was coaching an individual, and when we talk about a lack of trust in organisations, this individual was having challenges with, they believed, a HR professional. They were feeling sadness, they were feeling anger, and they were feeling that they weren't listened to. Having had the conversation using this ACT matrix and looking at what was going on in their life, it was them that said at the end of the conversation, I'm going to give that person a call now and I'm going to have a different conversation. And I know the outcome of that conversation was a short one, it was a peaceful one, and it was a win-win for both parties. I have seen this ACT matrix creating real change for individuals within organisations. I also mentioned in my introduction that I also am certified to use the pro-social matrix. We build that up into a we matrix when there is more than one person. Also, I talked about psychological safety. You cannot build psychological safety in organisations unless individuals develop and improve their psychological flexibility. Being aware of the unwanted stuff that shows up, jealousy, for example, and how they react and respond to that. So just looking at even what I do in terms of helping individuals develop psychological flexibility. I run webinars. Last week, I ran a webinar for an organisation for World Mental Health Day, explaining psychological flexibility and the benefits in terms of resilience. I provide coaching for individuals, getting in deep, using this ACT matrix and teaching them how to use it themselves so that they can continue to use it after we meet. I also provide workshops for teams to help them become psychologically flexible. And I also train leaders to use the ACT matrix with their teams, not only the ACT matrix, but also the pro-social matrix, which I have not shared with you today. We were meeting for a very short 30 minutes, and I'd love to hear your views and your thoughts in terms of what you've heard today. Please feel free to get in touch. If you would like to hear more, please feel free to sign up for my e-newsletter. You can go onto my website and simply hit the subscribe button, or feel free to follow me on this channel, which is Crowdcast. So at the very top of the screen, you can follow me. Crowdcast is a great facility with lots of webinars. You'll also see by following me that there are a library of webinars that you can access. This is a different platform to others, much more user-friendly, many more benefits to using it. Or feel free to follow me also on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I know some of you have joined me for the first time, so love to hear what your views and thoughts are. If you want to maybe have a chat, please feel free to hit the little button just underneath your screen, which is book a complimentary discovery call. That's a free 30-minute discovery call to look at how we might work together. Thank you so much for joining me, for taking the time out to find out about psychological flexibility and how that can impact you as a HR professional, and also helping to have safe and peaceful conversations with the team that you work with. If you do have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.